Dude.
Yeah, I don't grab the dichotomy. It's either a globe or it's flat.
Any type of
parallel. If
Okay,
two lines,
all right. Well, do
if
you
two
have
lines are
evidence of the
parallel,
No, I'm
that's
not.
what you're establishing. Yes.
No, I'm not. A water level is a tool in reality that sets up a
No.
horizontal local plane.
Yeah, but the horizontal is
That's
not a
not
physical
important.
thing. It's an imaginary line, right? That you're using as a reference.
Yeah, of course, but it's not a coordinate system.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. And all the verticals, you have to agree, are perpendicular to that horizontal
You
definition.
haven't demonstrated that.
Yeah, we have.
What do you mean by definition? So just defining verticals into being parallel? That doesn't mean
No, I'm not defining verticals into being parallel. I never even stated verticals are parallel. I said they're all perpendicular to the horizontal plane. That's
That
just the way
implies
the
they're all
tool
parallel.
works.
Wait, what's
No,
your
that all implies they're parallel. If
Okay,
two lines,
all right. Well, do
if
you
two
have
lines are
evidence of the
parallel-
contrary on a water level? With a water level.
Hang on a second. We're getting a bit into the weeds, guys. We're getting a bit into the weeds. What we're trying to establish were arguments for the globe that were not affirming the consequent. And Bacon, you made an argument that said, therefore, it cannot be a flat Earth. That's not on the table.
That's what?
That's not on the table. We can't use that. If not flat Earth, then globe does not track.
Okay, well, can you at least say that that's an argument for Earth being curved that does not affirm the consequence?
If you say that's an argument, well, the question is Earth being globe, right? So if you say that's an argument for Earth being globe, you're presupposing when you say that Earth being curved equals Earth being globe, you're presupposing it's a globe, which is affirming the consequent.
That's not presupposing it's a globe. That might be a non-sequitur, but that's not.
So, Gabby, what other shapes could it be?
Oh, I think it's impossible to know the shape of the entirety of creation.
What, in the physics we have, what other shapes could it be?
What do you
Well, if
mean?
you're asking my personal belief, right? I have a theological belief that it's impossible to know the shape of the entirety of creation. But that has nothing to do with the argument on the table.
It's possible it could be the shape of a unicorn. Could you explain the physics there?
No, I said, how does disproving a flat Earth, which was Bacon's argument, how does that automatically make it a globe?
Because,
How do you know it can't be a unicorn?
Because can you think of any other shape that includes the same physics and doesn't literally defy physics?
Which physics are you talking about? Which one specifically?
Dude, any type of.
Don't just I said specific.
Yeah. So can you describe gravity and explain how gravity would work on a unicorn-shaped Earth?
Can you explain how that works on a flat Earth?
Yes, I can, and it's logical. So can you explain how those physics, gravity, the downward or central, the force that makes everything go towards its surface or towards its center? Can you explain how that would happen?
God made it that way.
Dude.
Yeah, I don't grant the dichotomy. It's either a globe or it's flat. I don't grant that at all. I think there's other options, such as, it's impossible to know, or you can't know.
The only logical thing is to assume the Earth can be, the shape is flat or a sphere.
Flat's not a shape, dude.
Yeah.
No. So
You know what that means, right? You all know what that means.
Yeah, you
that
know
objection is just.
Yeah, it's like flat, but not really flat, right? It means flat, but with elevation changes.
Well, sure.
Not even claiming a shape of any sort. It's just talking about
So the shape that isn't shape, it's flat, that isn't flat. Yeah, I get what you mean, guy.
Here, I'll read you. If the Earth is measured flat, then there would be no measurable change in elevation. Elevation is measured change on the vertical datum. Therefore, the Earth is not measured flat. If the Earth is a spherical object, then the surface of liquid water at rest must curve. Water level is a tool for establishing a horizontal plane of reference. The Earth is not a spherical object. So it's neither of the two that you just claimed. So you're in a false dichotomy.
That's literally not affirming the consequence.
That's not.
Yeah, that's not affirming the consequence.
Hey, can you give an example of an affirming the consequent fallacy? We've given like 5. Just say you understand what it is so you can get it on this discussion.
No. If he's saying that,
Well, you're saying that it is, so if you could just give an example of the simplest ones of an affirming the consequent fallacy, that way we know you know what it is so you can get it on this discussion.
I gave you modus tollens. I didn't give you any fallacies. I gave you modus tollens formed arguments.
sure, I'll give you a simple one. If rained and the ground is wet, therefore it rained. That's an affirming the consequence.
There you go. That was a good one.
Nice. So how are they affirming the consequent? What part was he affirming the consequent?
He said that if the Earth is flat, then as far as I understood it, okay, let me know if I missed it.
Yeah, you missed P. I said if the Earth is measured flat.
Well, I was talking specifically about the water level. You said essentially what I thought your argument was is that if the Earth is flat, then all water levels will show flat level. All water levels show flat level, therefore the Earth is flat.
No, I'll read it for you one more time.
You have to steal his argument right now.
Yeah, if the Earth is measured flat, then there would be no measurable change in elevation. Elevation is measured change on the vertical datum. The Earth is not measured flat. This is if P, then Q. Not Q, therefore not P.
Nice, that's solid. That's modus tollens.
So,
I got one for the sphere too, if you want.
can I ask you a question? What was the point of that definition, that explanation?
To show you that you're in a dichotomy, that I falsified both models right there with 2 arguments.
So when I say flat, do you actually think I mean it's completely flat, no change in elevation at all?
Well,
How can you mean that?
when you say flat? That would be the question at hand right now.
Nothing in the natural world can be absolutely flat. Everyone knows that. It's topographical plane.
Yeah, why are you then using the word flat when you're describing the shape of the Earth?
A topographical plane is generally flat.
You can't appeal to everyone right now. We are asking you, how are you using the word flat? I don't
Well, this is the
care
thing,
what you
you
think.
can't-
I think I believe right now. I'm just asking you, why are you using the word flat
when you obviously don't mean flat.
How can we use the word sphere, which indicates a perfectly smooth sphere, instead of the word geometry?
Nobody's talking about a fucking sphere right now. We're talking about a plane.
Can't use either of those things. I think the word you want to use is planes or plane PLAIN, but a plane PLANE is a 2D.
If nothing in the natural world is flat, we all know that's why we call ourselves flat earthers. Okay?
Oh, who is this we? You got like a mouse in your pocket or something?
Yeah, usually demons speak of them in plural. Are you a demon?
Say I'm a flat earther, and you're not like, oh, well, the earth isn't flat. You're such a dummy. Like, stop it, you guys.
Well, dude, the whole thing is if flat means a measure of change on the vertical datum, which is what the definition, if you just Google it, gives you.
And you can't call anything flat then. Just stop, get that word out of your vocabulary for good.
What do you mean? I can call it flat soda? You never had a flat glass of soda?
Dude, there is absolutely nothing in the natural world that is
Yeah, uncarbonated soda is flat, bro.
in terms of its surface.
Oh, is that not in the natural world?
Dude,
Is uncarbonated soda no longer in the natural world?
I asked you a question.
You told me I can't use the word flat. Yeah, the surface of it is also flat, yeah.
But you know that if you zoomed up on it at a microscopic level, it would not be perfectly flat.
Oh, okay, so you're saying water's not flat?
It is not flat. It is topographically a plane.
What kind of plane? Like PLAIN or PLANE?
If you
Dude, you're so annoying, dude. Why would you consider that?
If you were to zoom out from the Earth and copy and paste a bunch of Earths, overall, it would be a perfectly smooth plane. It would be flat.
If you put yourself in the position of God, which is impossible to do, you can make a claim as if you are God.
That's not what I'm saying, dude.
Who has that view then? Who has that view?
Dude, I am trying to make the point that nothing in the natural world is flat. But
I disagree. I disagree. A mirror is flat.
Dude, if you call a sheet of paper flat or a mirror flat, even though on a microscopic level it has quote-unquote mountains.
Oh, you have evidence for that claim? Do you have evidence for the claim that if you zoom in on a mirror that there's mountains?
In the same way, if the Earth was on
Is the mirror sitting horizontally or vertical?
it is flat. Okay.
We could put it horizontal for this, but yeah, okay, so you have evidence that you zoomed in on a mirror and found mountains?
What mirror?
I have evidence that I've zoomed up on a paper and there are enormous mountains. If a mirror has those enormous mountains, then no, a mirror, or if a piece of paper has those enormous mountains, then a mirror is not much different.
Really, a mirror has no different properties than a piece of paper.
Really?
Why don't we just call them the same thing?
On a microscopic level, it is not flat. You know that.
Go easy on your baby brother, Tora. Come on.
Okay, if you say, why are you saying I know that? Because I don't know that. I've never put a microscope up to a mirror. Have you put a microscope up to a mirror? Have you put a microscope up to a mirror?
If you can't logically deduce that, we can't have this
It's
conversation.
not a deduction, that's an induction.
Okay, sure. If you can't just think about that and conceive that on a microscopic level, nothing in the natural world is flat, I don't know what to say to you.
I disagree with you. I don't think that nothing in the world is flat.
Okay.
You're wrong about that. We have mirrors in the world right now that are flat, and until you present evidence of mountains on mirrors, you still don't have a claim.
Do you believe that there's space in between molecules? Or atoms, if you believe in atoms?
I don't know. I don't know about any of that. I don't even know why you're obfuscating. You made a claim, sir. You said there's mountains on a mirror. Why don't you provide your evidence?
I'm breaking it down. Do you believe that there's any space between molecules?
I don't know. I don't know what molecules are.
Dude,
I
stop.
don't believe in your conceptual atomistic worldview. I'm not an atomist, a materialist.
I only appealed to atoms because I thought you might want to appeal to them.
No.
This is the horrible situation we are in right now. The argument at hand is that you cannot prove the globe without, help me guys, what was it?
Affirming the consequent.
Affirming the consequent. You are entering this argumentation and you're defending your point of view, and then you're going into the discussion of flat isn't actually flat when you call yourself a flat earther, and then you're going, you're sidetracking from the argument. Because the globers are affirming the consequence. Focus.
When you say flat, there's many things that you're making a conclusion on. But flat means horizontal.
Okay, hold up. The conversation.
I'm not done. When we
Yeah, you're not adding to the conversation.
I'm not done. When we say flat, we mean that the Earth is horizontal. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alvaro. That's
And
fine.
on the website with something equally relevant at Taco Bell, you can get a Mexican pizza for half off if you act now.
yeah, what the fuck was that?
That's ad hominem attack. So this is the whole the topic on the table. The topic on the table right now is you cannot present a globe argument without affirming the consequent.
All globe arguments affirm the consequent.
Yeah, we were just talking about the flat.
Hey guys,
Did you not just spend 5 minutes talking about that you can't say that the Earth is flat?
Someone else is saying that we're saying that. We're just saying you can't make a globe argument without affirming the consequent. That's the topic, at least.
can I get like 20 seconds here? So I just want to say in terms of the word flat, these are 5 definitions of the word flat that are used when people say flat Earth. So just give me like 30 seconds. The first one, the definition of flat, horizontally level. So that would mean that level is a horizontal. The next one is having a continuous horizontal surface. So that would be a horizontal surface that's continuous. The third one is having a relatively smooth or even surface. So the word relatively would relate to the fact that there can be mountains. So it's relatively smooth from a zoomed out high above level. Relatively smooth or even surface. The fourth one is arranged or laid out as to be level or even. So that would mean that the water, the land is arranged and laid out to be level and horizontally level in particular. And then the fifth one is having the major surfaces essentially parallel or distinctly greater than the minor surfaces. So that would mean that the major surfaces, meaning the water, the main surface, is essentially parallel and distinctly greater than the minor surfaces. So those are 5 definitions when people use flat that all correlate with what's being referred to in terms of a horizontal plane, etc.
I agree with all those definitions. What we've been trying to discuss is that all globe Earth arguments are affirming the consequent, and then someone brought up an argument that allegedly refutes the flat Earth as if that would be a globe Earth argument. It's only a globe Earth argument if he presupposes it's a globe, or presupposes the dichotomy that it's either flat or it's a globe.
Can I read you this thing? I asked ChatGPT, are pictures of the Earth as evidence that the Earth is spherical and affirming the consequence fallacy, and if not, why? And ChatGPT said,
Before you read that?
Hold on, Jake. Yeah, he wasn't done, but you can read that afterwards. You can read that afterwards.
Yeah, so just like the affirmative claim on the table is all globe arguments, all arguments that say the shape of the entirety is a globe are affirming the consequent. So then to take the negative position would be, here's a argument that it's a globe Earth, the entirety, that is not affirming the consequent. That would be the negative position.
Pause.
If you say I have evidence that the
No, I meant.
One sec, Kazza. Jake wanted to get in. Jake was waiting. I'm sorry, Kazza.
Yeah, I did after Jake.
why it is not enough affirming the consequence? It's not a fallacy here because the relationship between P and Q is stronger than just if P and Q in logic terms. That means Q is not just a consequence of P, it is also a unique prediction of P and incompatible with not P. So the reasoning is closer to modest Holland's inference to the best explanation than to affirming the consequent.
What is the argument?
It is valid scientific reasoning. If Earth is round, we see round pictures. If Earth is flat, we should not consistently see such persistence from all altitudes, angles, and independent sources. We do see them from many independent sources. Therefore, the best explanation is the Earth is round. And I asked it more about the logic aspect of it, and it goes into if P then Q, P to Q only says that whenever P is true, Q will also be true. It does not guarantee that P is the only way for Q to be true. That's why affirming the consequent is a fallacy in plain condition logic. However, in this case, what makes the scientific reasoning stronger than just P then Q is the relationship is biconditional. If and only if P then Q, written as P both directions Q. Now, if Q is true, you can validly infer P.
Earth photos prove it's a globe because we presuppose it's a globe. Affirm the consequent.
Probably that's not an accurate representation. That's a strawman. Earth photos prove the Earth is a globe because we assume that the photos are real and legitimate.
Now, I listened to all that.
Sorry.
I listened to all the ChatGPT argument. That ChatGPT argument literally did an affirming the consequent fallacy.
Yeah, I think Pazza wanted to get in, so go ahead, Pazza. What do you have to go?
kind of touching on the same thing, really. If you say I think the butler did it because I found blood on his jacket, yeah, that's kind of are you affirming the consequence of the having evidence that points to that? I mean, if I don't think there's any proof. There's evidences, and the evidence is saying, well, if we see this, then this can only make sense if it's this, and that's not really an affirmation at all. That's just literally saying that aligns with that. And unless we find some other proposition that it aligns to, what should we do with that?
Well, the difference is
That's awesome, Pazza. He said if the butler did it, right? Like if we think the butler did it, that would be a hypothesis. And there's a difference between a hypothesis and a presupposition. Does anyone know the difference?
Yeah. That's what I was going over this morning. A hypothesis, Pazza, just so you know, is a proposed explanation that is tentative and testable. It's explicitly stated and meant to be evaluated against evidence. Can be proven true or false through observation or experiment. Give you an example. If plants receive more sunlight, they will grow faster. Conclusion. It's a claim you're trying to verify or falsify. A presupposition is an assumption taken for granted at the start. It's not questioned or tested within the argument. It's treated as a given, often embedded in the language or logic of a claim. Example. When did you stop lying? That presupposes you were lying. So it's a starting point that's axiomatically assumed to be true.
I get that, but you can say, if I'm moving across a surface and I'm observing a celestial object, and I'm on a flat surface, I expect it to move trigonometrically. If it doesn't move trigonometrically and it moves in a linear proportionality, then the surface can't be flat. That's a valid way of framing things, for example.
How many people are talking about right now, Pazza?
We're talking about globe arguments, though.
Yeah, falsification of flat would not be an argument for globe, my brother.
That is an evidence that you're on a surface that isn't flat.
Well, that's where you get into composition issues. Like, let's say I take that 2 mile by 100 mile stretch. I'm sure I brought this up to you, and it's evenly horizontal, 2 miles by 100 miles, right? I cannot then make a claim that the entirety of creation, the entirety of every surface everyone lives on. So if you did take a measurement of a stretch, and then you say, okay, I can make a claim of the entirety, that would be a part of the whole composition fallacy.
But that's not what I mean. If celestial navigation is whichever direction you move in, anything in the sky directly in front of you rises and falls at proportional rate. That aligns itself with the notion that you're on a curve.
So you're saying that this would prove that some parts of the creation, the entirety is curved?
No, but you could infer that the thing you're looking at is a long, long way away, and the lines of light are predominantly straight, because that's our usual experience of most things, isn't it?
You take that one part, you make a claim about the entirety being the composition issue.
I mean, well, if you move across a surface and it moves it doesn't move trigonometrically, it moves by linear proportionality. By having a knowledge of geometry, you know that there's something not quite right there. Now, what could that be? And those are the kind of thinking exercises that led people to muse that it may not. Yes, there could be a manifest in the sky that creates that effect. That's leaping to conclusions about things that we don't know about, and also it's arguably going to be a complicated system and complicated to describe. Which is why we go.
That's why I love Pazza. Pazza's one of the most honest people in here. You're right.
all the explanations even for the astrological epoch, all the explanations about what we're looking at and what information we can imbue from them was all based upon just simply the simplest or the most comfortable explanations to what they were. And that goes through from the old flat Earth celestial dome through the age of astronomy through Ptolemy, the Ptolemaic era, right through to the Copernican deviation from that. They were all kind of working on some basic inferences because that's all they could possibly do.
That inference, as long as it's a hypothesis that can be tested, I'm cool with it. But if it's like a presupposition where it's like, we presuppose it's this thing, and then we did a thing, well, that proves that it was this thing. But it's dependent on the presupposition. I'm against that. I can't grant that. That would be affirmed the consequent. But I agree it's a hypothesis.
There usually is some kind of thinly veiled presupposition in any hypothesis. Hypothesis can take the form of, if this is causing this to happen, then I would expect this to be changing. This would manifest in a pattern. Yeah. So you kind of, and normally most of those kind of hypotheses don't sit in isolation. They're not something that someone approaches a completely naive situation. They're usually bringing a correlation on board or an idea of one, and they're going to give it a good testing and a good thumping.
Yes, that's a hypothesis. But if you say, so given what we know this to be true, right? It's like the laws of logic are real, intelligible, immutable, universal. That would be a presupposition. We have that, and then we make a hypothesis that presupposes that. That hypothesis isn't like, if the laws of logic are this, you wouldn't say that because that's your presupposition. You already have that. That's already put down, axiomatically taken. The hypothesis after that should not be trying to prove the presupposition that is already accepted as axiomatically true. Otherwise, it would be like the affirm the consequent issue.
What a breath of fresh air, though, from Paza. I got to say, thank you, Paza.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Paza.
Well, I mean, you can have a back and forth on this. It's not like, it's from a perspective of, I don't think there's any proofs, and there's nothing that can be proven to me unless I see it and I get high enough and see it. If I get to that point, then there's a profoundly observation that would have a ramification to me. But at this point, even with my experiences in the industries I've worked in on technologies that are kind of incumbent on the shape, all I have is evidences. And that's really all I've got to go on. I haven't traveled much of the world, so, I mean, I don't think that every photograph taken as high as they say they are false. I can't just personally see how that makes any sense for one. I mean, that's why I say it's too big a thing to. And also when people say every you think space and space exploration and satellites and all that isn't where they say it is. I don't see any value in them doing that. I don't know what control construct they would gain that they don't have already. Control everything, irrespective of what Joe peon paying taxes and taking their medicines and all the things we completely rally against in the way that we're unfair to the citizenry. All of that goes on, irrespective of what we think is over the edge of the next valley.
No.
It's crazy, Pazza, too, when you say, I haven't even been that much over the Earth. Nobody really has, because they say 70% of it's covered in water. So, if anything, the people are only on 30% of it. You know what I mean? I know there's people in ships and stuff, but, you're not in one place ever on a ship. You're constantly moving.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't saying anything. I just saw the optical illusion being just lost.
Yeah, so I'd say that got me. Yeah, I always thought that was a strange thing, because, you can take a local measurement, but oftentimes people take a measurement of water at rest on the surface of creation. Because I call that the entirety of creation. I really try not to put a pronoun to it. So the entire creation, I've seen people use the surface of water in other parts of the creation to make it seem like a local ground thereon. I've struggled with that proof because, from what I understand, you can only measure locally. I don't think you can measure something that's not local to you.
Yeah. Someone touched earlier on. I don't think there is true flatness because the sea, even taking it a broader resolution, apart from beyond the waves and all the currents and everything. Yeah, there's a worldwide tidal map that's flexing it and bowing it, albeit at a very small rate everywhere. So it's always arguably no part of the sea is truly horizontal in any given datum.
Yeah, we could take the hydrological cycle too, which puts all that water in flux as well. Hydrological cycle, water is part of that, subject to it. Except, if you have Martha Stewart's divine container of all containers. If you have, I was talking to Mister about that. If you have her container of all containers, that will protect water from the hydrological cycle.
I don't know. My mom used to date this biker guy, and he had some Harley Davidson Am Jam beer cans that were all collector's items, and he had them shits in the sunlight, and you pick it up, it felt like a full can of. I never weighed them or nothing, but it felt like a full can of beer, like 6-packs.
Yeah, I had some 1980s collector's Pepsis in my basement, and they were all empty.
They were all empty? You might got mice or something.
So just real quick, when I read out those definitions of flat, does everybody that was contesting using the word flat, does everybody now concede that and agree that the word flat can be used for what's being referred to when we're talking about the Earth? Just to get a concession. You guys went for 20 minutes going on that, so can we just put that one to rest and agree that those definitions are referring to?
I would agree that that's the proper definition. Based on that definition, I think Torah for Yah should take back what he was saying. I don't think it was necessary, even in good faith, to just say, you're not a flat earther because the Earth isn't technically flat because it has elevation changes. We know what flat Earth means, and so that was in bad faith of him to bring it up.
I mean, it's not bad faith. Bad faith would mean I don't want to come to a conclusion in the argument. I believe all those definitions were loaded with other presuppositions like horizontal, so I would need to get your definition of horizontal.
Yeah, perpendicular to vertical.
Perpendicular to vertical. At a point?
I don't think that you were in good faith. I think you were just...
Hold on. Let's let Torah and Dio go back and forth on the definitions that Dio presented.
Wait, this was between me and Torah, though. This was not between Geo. Geo just provided a definition, and he was asking you if anybody agrees or disagrees.
Yeah, and Torah doesn't agree, or he thinks that the definition of horizontal needs to be defined. Are you okay with that definition, Torah?
You were talking about the definition of horizontal, though.
Well, here's the definition of horizontal: parallel to the plane of the horizon at right angles to the vertical.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. I
Okay,
agree with horizontal in that sense. But then what was that first definition you read off?
of the flat ones.
Yeah.
Well, let's say the first one's horizontally level.
Yeah.
Well, we know that flat can have elevation changes. Everyone knows that because in a plane, P-L-A-I-N, in geography, that's called a flat land. And it's a flat, expansive land. It generally doesn't have much change in elevation and generally doesn't have trees, but it has grass, it has, there's little valleys and sometimes there's
That's why you say the
even
Earth is a
mountains.
stationary topographical plane, right? You'd say the Earth is a stationary topographical plane.
That's why I asked if, well, before someone said plane, I asked if they meant like P-L-A-N-E. Because when I looked up topographical plane on this server in the text chat, I saw that, like, mostly I'm the only one who typed in topographical P-L-A-I-N. And then Lisbeth from the file experiment, she typed in P-L-A-I-N. If you type in topographical P-L-A-I-N, the only people who say P-L-A-I-N is me 4 times and Lisbeth 1 time. But then you type in P-L-A-N-E, that's like 200 results on that. So I'm cool if people say plane, like P-L-A-I-N, which is also called a flat land. It has plateaus and.
Well, one of the definitions of plane, P-L-A-N-E, is a flat or level surface.
Exactly.
The word plane.
A 2D surface, yeah. Right?
Not necessarily. I mean,
You know what plane that's not 2D?
The definition for P-L-A-I-N, I'm not sure what dictionary you're using, but I do not see anything about a surface.
It's like the plane.
Definition. So if you go to Wikipedia and type in plane, it says in geography, a plane, commonly known as a flat land, is a flat, expansive land. And there's pictures of planes, right? A flat, expansive land that generally does not change much in elevation. So this is a flat land. It's called a flat expanse, and it's called a plane, P-L-A-I-N, and it does have changes in elevation. So I don't have any issue with the word flat when describing like a land like that. But P-L-A-N-E, I do take issue with because I haven't found P-L-A-N-E that means 3D surface, always 2D.
So when I see that definition from Wikipedia, it's the last definition. It says noun, a large area of flat.
Of course, you guys are still arguing definitions and semantics with Galaxy and Torah.
A large area of flat land with a few trees. So that doesn't really describe the Earth.
Well, it's been like an hour you guys have been arguing the definition of flat.
It's not the case, and it's not useful for you to do that. Actually, it was something that was discussed for about 15 minutes, and I came in with 4 specific definitions of the word flat. I'm trying to clarify this, so when this issue comes up, if we can come to some agreement, or so that we all just know the words we're using. Tora had mentioned what I've mentioned before, the idea of like a flat soda. So everybody knows we're not talking about carbonation. And then there's also a definition of flat that means like like having a surface that's completely smooth.
Or like golf, yeah.
What about
like instead of shiny?
What if your voice is not very dynamic?
Nothing in the whole world is flat except in math.
I'll tell you what the reasoning behind it is, Gio, is I just don't want to be lumped into flat Earth because what happens is when you're trying to have this debate with the Glober, they think if they just dunk on flat Earth, that means they're like making a point. When in reality, we want to talk about their globe and like the points that they have. I don't really have a defense for the flat Earth. And for me personally, I think we live on water in water world, so I would just take the approach that I don't think it's either flat or a globe. It's like way beyond our imagination.
So I hear you, and there's a reason that I don't call myself a flat earther. I've mentioned that before. I don't think it's like a nuanced enough term to really describe cosmography. So I mean, I have my reasons as well. So I hear you that, and there's also a lot of like, the whole term flat earth is generally linked oftentimes with that azimuth like map and all the other things that go along with that. So I hear you on all those things, and your position on it. But you were contesting using the term flat for what others are referring to. If you're not claiming that, that's fine. But when they say flat earth, in terms of all of this, like having like one of those definitions was a relatively smooth surface, or having a relatively smooth or even surface. So, I mean, do you still think that you need to contest that when people when they say the term flat? Like, I understand you don't want to be linked with that term and like things like that. I realize like they use it a lot, and then you don't want to have to defend that term. I hear you, but do you agree that the way that is being used for how it's being referred to in terms of planar, etc., having, like if you were to have a God's eye view, you'd have a huge planar surface, sort of like if you were to zoom out on your floor and the floor is level, flat, etc. Like, you just agree at least that that's how they're using it, and there's not a problem with using the word flat?
Yeah, I understand how it's being used, and I see that, and I am taking issue with the God's eye view part. We don't have that ability, so that's the part that I have an issue with. So basically, I'm trying to make that point. But if it's an issue to disagree with flat Earth, I can stop doing that. But my point would be that nobody can know the entirety of the Earth, and if all flat Earthers agree with that, do all flat Earthers agree that nobody will ever know the entirety of what we live on? And just like be able to know all the inner workings of it and be like, yeah, we have it all figured out. Is that for the creator only, or you think, you know what I mean? So I say that's non-obtainable. So that's my position, and I want it to be heard because that's, I believe, the truth.
What would prevent it from being accomplished? Tora, if you don't mind me asking.
I know you're referring to, right? Where it says, were you there when I laid the foundations? Referring to, was it Job or something maybe, Tora? I don't remember, but.
Yeah, I believe there's barriers in place put by the creator that you might, say, oh, we figured it out up until these barriers. But I also think there's the whole fact that it seems like we live on something living that doesn't need to be objectified, because like we don't like to be objectified. So why would we in turn do that to like reality, the most beautiful thing ever?
I think it's just
Yeah, we definitely have limits.
We naturally have to do. I don't think we can I don't think we should waste our time saying, oh, he or she thing like that has feelings. Like, I don't think we need to even trouble ourselves with that. Like, objectifying it is the easiest way to discuss it.
Well, and Tor, I hear what you're saying about like some of the philosophical or worldview or religious, spiritual. I hear you on all of those, and I also hear you why you wouldn't want to be necessarily lumped into the flat earther thing because that has all these other connotations and so on. But it's just when people are generally talking about like, you know, I mean, is there a better term than? I mean, I don't really use flat that much. I use planar. I use other words that I think are better than flat because flat is kind of not. It's just not nuanced enough and so on. But it's just Tor that you take contesting when people are using the term flat earth, even if they're just meaning like those things I said horizontally level. Like, do you think level is horizontal? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, definitely.
like Bev will always say level is horizontal, which is technically the definition of flat, and then he'll say the earth isn't flat, but then he'll say the earth is horizontally level. So it's kind of like he's contradicting himself, actually.
I understand that. It might seem like a contradiction. And if you understand, if I believe it's a composition fallacy to measure part of it. So if I say, yes, horizontal and is level, and it seems to be that everywhere that we've been, I still haven't been everywhere that we could be or could go. And I don't believe anyone has. So I'm just leaving the possibility open, I guess. I'm not like taking a stand on that specifically. I'm just talking about locally in reality. These are the truths we can know. And I'm not concerned with knowing about the entirety, I guess.
I think you kind of changed your position. You were basically like ridiculing like several of us for calling it flat, and now you're like, oh, I just want y'all to understand my position. I don't get what you're even doing right.
I think he was ridiculing people. I think he was saying that in his worldview, that word has a specific meaning, and he doesn't grant it for that specific thing. And a lot of people wouldn't. A lot of people wouldn't call themselves flat earther, just the same way a lot of people won't call themselves conspiracy theorists. But people do use words incorrectly. So like I point out, the word plains, it means a flat expanse of land with little elevation change. That doesn't mean it has no elevation change. So like if someone says, oh, flat has to mean no elevation change, well then all of geography as far as plains go, Plain, would be incorrect. There's abyssal plains, which are flat or gently sloping areas. And there's planitia. I posted all the different types of plains. But the definition for plains is, in geography, it's commonly called a flat land. But it has elevation changes. It has, grass mounds. Sometimes it has valleys and plateaus. So I don't think anyone takes issue with that. I think someone takes issue with calling the entirety a flat earth because I take issue with that personally. Theologically, I definitely do. But I take issue with it because a lot of times people use the majority surface water to prove that the earth, and the entirety, which is majority surface water, allegedly, they call it all earth. I also don't call it all earth. I call the entirety or the entirety of creation. And I don't like objectifying it.
No, I hear you on all those things, but I mean, the thing is, the word plane, Plane, the word plane, Plain, and the word flat are all, there's overlaps with all those. Because like in the definition of plane, Plane, one of the definitions is a flat or level surface. The definition of flat, one of them is horizontally level, and so on. And then the one you mentioned with Plain also has overlap. So,
sure, but Plain is 2D.
Yeah, no, but to be clear, the AIN version is predominantly used in geography. It means flat, as in flatlands, but it also is imbued with the idea of either being bereft of or having a very consistent a biome as well. Hence the reason why it's plain, as in the sense that it's quite ordinary. So it's only really used in geography. It's not really used for for maths or anything like that, is it?
It's like the abyssal plains are in an ocean. That's in a deep ocean basin.
Yeah, but in a geographic perspective, that's seen as a consistent ocean floor, a consistent biome, and it's a plateau of sorts, just a subterranean.
Plane tends to be more geometrical. So there's a difference. One of the Plain definitions is an extensive area of level or rolling treeless country. So again, there's that term level, which is used in the definition of flat, and the Plane, and then treeless country is sort of, that's more the geographical, claiming that, there's like a certain feature.
Yeah, that's where the biome comes into it, which is part of geography, when you're considering surface areas.
100%. There's okay with plain to describe like a flat expanse of land, even if it has like mounds of grass. I could still call that a flat expanse of land, 100%.
So could someone cite this definition of the word plane, Plain, because the Wikipedia definition referred to does not contain the definition you all are.
Well, you go to Merriam-Webster or dictionary.com, you can go to one of those maybe. I mean,
I've repeatedly read the Wikipedia definition of it. Plain, commonly known as a flat land, is a flat expanse of land that generally does not change much in elevation. I posted it in the chat too.
All right, so then Torah or Galatrax, or some of you guys that were contesting the word flat, so when somebody says the word flat earth, you may not agree with the term or want to link yourselves with it or whatever, but do you understand what they're saying? Like, it's not fallacious for them to use that term if these understandings are in place in terms of the overlap and horizontal level, at least of what they're referring to? Because it seems like that's what you guys are taking issue with. Like, you can't call it flat.
I can see how they think they're not being fallacious. Yes, I can see that.
Well, in the definitions of the words that they're using, though, the ones we just went through, like horizontally level, relatively even, which relatively means, relative to a baseline of horizontal, like water level and so on, that elevation changes are not necessarily problematic if they define it in those ways.
Yeah, the places that are horizontally level, I would 100% call flat. Right? I can't say like the entirety of creation is flat, even if you have like a giant sample of horizontally level, because I feel like in my worldview, that's a composition fallacy. It's like areas that are horizontally level, 100%. I'm cool with calling that flat. No problem.
I often say the term foundationally planar. I use the word foundationally, which we could get into specifics of what, there's probably quarrels that could be made with that too, but just meaning that there's like a foundation of level. Like my floor, like I have wood flooring, and there's definitely little, ups and downs in the wood flooring. Somebody could say, hey, this is a flat floor, but then I could say, well, no, actually, there's all these little elevation changes. But somebody could understand what I mean if we say, hey, that floor is flat, and it's not necessarily fallacious to call it that or problematic if we're just on the same page of what's being referred to. Like, I don't think anyone's saying the earth is like perfectly 2D. Like, obviously there is elevation changes, and I don't prefer the term in some ways, but I'm just saying the way people are using it, whether it's preferred or not, at least in terms of the geometrical, is not necessarily an issue just because there is the overlap between the Plain, Plain, and flat. I mean, unless there's a better term. I mean, I think we all know what we're referring to. Like, if there's a globe, then it's a huge sphere and has curvature. If there's no curvature other than, that's why I say foundationally planar, because there would be like let's say the oceans were perfectly still, like a swimming pool, and there was no, waves and tides and all of that. If it was just perfectly like a swimming pool, that would be closer to the word flat, because really level, calm water is not going to have very much, fluctuation in it. And then if you had land coming up out of that water, so that's why like foundationally planar would be like the water, which in that sense. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that could occur like on some borals and stuff. I'm with you, and I understand what you're getting at. I think a new word or a cool word to call it would be creation, or just reality, because that's what it is. It's the reality that everyone's talking about. They've encompassed this word Earth into like, because people think that's like the entirety. With ancients, that would be the land part and the water part. And I'm trying to get in tune with that kind of logic, because I think that there could be something very special about having that kind of bond with the creation, by bringing you closer to the Creator. I hope you guys understand that.
I like the way you said that, because a lot of people, when they hear the word Earth, they think of this thing that has a surface that's primarily not Earth.
That's one of the things that I keep taking issue with. Where it's like, you say Earth, you're talking about the thing that the ball. These people believe it's a ball. They think it's 71% water.
And the way that they got to that ball shape was they looked at the sky and they came up with a sphere. So then when you're talking to them, they say, we've measured the ground by looking up at the sky and we got a sphere, but it's not really a sphere. It's not really a spheroid. Right? Then you have to grant sphere for that case. So I don't grant sphere because I think it's silly, because, well, first off, they know it's not a sphere. No one thinks it's a sphere, but they say sphere because that's what the stars tell them. But no one thinks it's a sphere.
Yeah, I hear you on that. But that's where like the usage of words, like, I think of words like they kind of point to something. Like a word isn't really a thing other than what it points to. So it's like pointing to an idea. So that's why like having an understanding of, that's why we have like the dictionary to try to understand what each other is saying. But like the word itself it's just like a sound. It's like a thing that comes out of our mouth, but it's pointing to something. But I want to say too, like the word Earth, it also has its own different meanings. Like one of the definitions of Earth is like just I'm on the page for etymology on Earth. One of them is like ground, soil, dirt, etc. So that's one of the definitions of dirt of Earth is the ground. And obviously the ground is fluctuating all over the place. So I mean, there's a lot of elevation changes, and there's really like no like perfectly flat ground, because even if you're gonna always have little grass and dirt ups and downs. But that's one of the definitions of Earth. But then another definition of Earth is the material world, or the abode of man. So and it says as opposed to the heavens or the underworld. So in that case, like the abode of man, that would be like the plane of existence kind of thing. Like the abode of man is like the place we live. Like so in that sense, when they're saying like the Earth is a globe or whatever, they're saying the abode of man is this ball in a vacuum kind of a thing. So in that definition of it, it's just meaning like the place we live. Like like in a lot of the ancient traditions, they have like the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. So the Earth would be like the middle world. The abode of where we live kind of thing. So yeah, even the word Earth has its like specific ways of how it's described. So I mean, if someone says flat Earth and they mean horizontally level, the abode of man, then they're saying that the overall structure of it is that there's a horizontal level, water's level, etc. And then it's the place we live, like the abode of humans.
Even the word like globe, that comes from a word glebe, which meant a lump of earth or soil, or mud, like a glob, right? A glebe. So it doesn't even mean the ball. It just became the ball.
Globers, glebers instead.
Yeah, you call them glebers because it could just mean a clump of terra or mud, right? Watery soil. That's what the globe is. That's what glebe comes from, right?
That's where they got it.
Baller.
Just called salts.
Exactly. So glebe. But the thing we wanted to talk about was there's this idea of the globe, right? And Tori and I, we joined, and no one's talking, so we came up with this idea maybe we can make a topic which is are there any arguments that show it's a globe, or the oblate spheroid or the sphere, whatever the thing is, that show that aren't affirming the consequent? And we got started into the mud with we're into the glebe.
You guys are applying the affirming the consequent, though. You couldn't even prove that your dad was your dad without you applying an affirming the consequent fallacy to any argument you make for how your dad is your dad.
So we can go back to that. The only thing about the definition thing is just there was like 10, 15 minutes. I was driving and listening, so it was just that had come up in the midst of it. But yeah, if you want to get back to that, because that is a important topic. Like, is there any argument for the globe or proof of the globe that isn't?
No, because the way that it's applied here is that if you take a blood test, the results could be faked. The person could just by chance have a genetic match that's the same as you, but actually isn't related to you. There could be people there that want that your dad is a rich and powerful person and he paid them to lie on the test. There's all kinds of what you could then say is a fallacy to say that if this test shows that we're related, then we're related, right? But no, there's other factors that could make that the result of that test say that you're related even though you're not.
Yeah, so that could be affirming the consequent if you presupposed, the guy you call your dad is your dad, and you used that within your argumentation to prove that he's your dad. But in the blood test example, your hypothesis is, I think this person's my dad. I'm gonna get the blood test, and then you can repeat it, etc., at different places, different unbiased places, and it would be inductive. Sure, I guess it wouldn't be 100%, but you can tell with a degree of certainty without presupposing that he's your dad. You can do it without affirming the consequent.
No, but you're saying that you're making the argument that if this guy is my dad, then the blood test would show that we're related, right?
What would be this guy is my dad, and then I take a specific blood test that shows he's my dad, which proves he's my dad. That would be affirming the consequent.
Okay, so in what way could you make an argument that wouldn't be affirming the consequent?
I said, so you take a hypothesis. I think this guy is my dad. You set out to prove the hypothesis, not a presupposition, because there is a difference between a presup and a hypothesis. So you don't presuppose, you make a hypothesis.
So how's it different than making a hypothesis that say, I think the Earth is spherical?
That's the question. So where's the argument that the Earth is globe, spherical, or whatever, obviously, where's the argument that doesn't presuppose it is before it claims it is?
It's no different than saying, it's literally no different than presupposing that any of us have dads anyway, right?
Everyone has a dad. That's how people are made.
Yeah, but what if you came into existence 10 seconds ago by a powerful being, and all the memories that you think of growing up and all that is just implanted? But you were you were instantaneously created. I mean, if you want to take it to the absurdity that you guys do, you can't ever be sure of anything. That's why I said you can't ever be sure that your family's your family, that you are you. That, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be sure.
We're taking it to absurdity to say we're taking it to absurdity. If this, therefore that, because this evidence, which isn't, if I presuppose this, then I can make this, therefore the thing I presuppose is true. That's affirming the consequent. But no, I didn't take it to absurdity. I don't think anything's absurd. I think you can know things are certain. I believe in objective truth. And I think you can justify beliefs to a degree of certainty, and that's called a justified true belief. So we're looking for arguments that it is a globe, probably sphere, whatever you want to call it, that do not affirm the consequent.
How do you know that you can trust your own mind?
Well, if you struggle with that question, then, you know.
Nobody can be sure of that, right? It's just part of the pragmatic approach that you have to take as an axiom.
Hey, if I take on your subjective worldview, I could just say you're wrong over and over again. It would be just as good as your questions, right? I take on objective worldview. I think we can prove things in reality. We can know things. We can use evidence to, you know, come to truth. And I think we can make arguments that prove things to be true.
Yeah, Jake, you've had to refer to the carpet example before, right?
But no, I haven't heard it. What's the carpet example?
Yeah. No, yeah, like we can prove things in reality with argumentation, okay? So we can reason through it together. If me and you are in a room standing on some carpet, we know the necessary precondition to that carpet is something to support us, our weight and the carpet's weight. We would call this a floor, the ground, something like that. So I don't have to peel back the carpet to prove that to you, right? We know that because if you try to say the necessary precondition is not required. Right? So that you're saying, no, there is no floor necessary, or there is no ground or something to support our weight. Your position will reduce itself to absurdity. So what we know is because there's no evidence to the contrary of that position, that we all agree we have carpet, therefore there must be a floor or something to support your weight underneath it.
Yeah, that's making the assumption that there's no other way for you to be supported.
Right? You can go ahead and try to come up with those kind of ideas or whatever, and I already said they'll be reduced to absurdity.
I gave you a way, dude. You could nail the
carpet into the wall, into the 2x4s in the wall, and it could support your weight easy. You could do that easy. But I said, you notice how I made the argument this time? I said we would know for sure there's something there in order to support our weight. So at that point, we'd investigate. If there's nails in the carpet wall, we would know that's what's there, right? But we don't really have to investigate that. We know there's something there for sure. If you want to know exactly what it is, you could do the investigation. But the bottom line is we have that knowledge for certain.
Well, Jeremy's on a magic carpet ride right now, so I don't know.
Yeah, he's a carpet munch. Jeremy's got jungle spike traps. I'm never going in a room with Jeremy because he walks in a room and there's jungle spike traps underneath the carpet. The necessary precondition to having a trap is everyone assuming my first argument is true.
Right, everyone treats every carpet as having a support underneath. To tie that back, like there's no evidence to the contrary that a carpet can be held up without a support system. Well, there's no evidence to the contrary that the Earth is a globe. Or not a globe, rather. There's no evidence to that contrary.
Carpet.
So we're looking for evidence to the contrary, right? So like you say the Earth is not a globe. Well, can you prove that wrong without affirming the consequent?
Well, doesn't it like scripturally say that the Earth has foundations which it resides on?
Yeah, also we can't know the shape.
Well, but it specifically says refers to the foundations being laid. Like I think it was specifically like, were you there when I laid the foundations?
Just Job 30, yeah. And Jeremiah 31, if heaven above could be measured and the foundations of earth searched out beneath, I've also cast off all the seed of Israel for all they have done. So if the foundations can be found, all the seed of Israel will be cast off. Have all the seed of Israel been cast off? Nope. Foundations have not been searched out.
He's not saying that they're searched out. I don't know. Well, the point is that it's kind of applicable with the carpet analogy that you guys are making, and then, but it's also a positive claim, right? So if you are, supposedly Christian, then, why would you perceive that any other way? And it seems like a lot of these globe Christians just kind of like twist and manipulate the preconceived biases to fit, what Scripture's implying rather than deliberately saying. And I don't know. Anyhow,
Scripture's deliberately saying that you cannot know the shape of the creation.
But more importantly, it's implying a positive claim to a foundation being laid.
Sure. I agree with that. I said the foundations can't be searched out. I don't know why it was brought up.
Wait, I brought it up because you're talking about the notion that a carpet requires a foundation for it to reside on top of, analogous to the earth. And I don't know how you can make a connection.
I'll help you with the connection. So if we went to that room and we didn't presuppose there's a flooring or a foundation underneath the carpet, right?
Wait, what?
Every time you're standing on a carpet, Every time you're standing on a carpet, you're presupposing there's something underneath that carpet holding it up.
That is based on the world we know, though.
Well, I mean,
Right, you could take it to Pluto and make it absurd, sure, it's fine.
why would you assume anything else? I mean,
I would take it to the jungle in Vietnam when they were covering the holes with little spiky traps. You know what I'm talking
That's
about?
always the way to make the preconditions and presuppositions, like,
well, I mean, you got.
take it to absurdity. Let's talk about the double slit experiment and black holes. Let's make it real absurd, right?
Hold on, no, what it is it's a presupposition that you're like, you guys agree. You're like, yeah, everyone knows that. Yeah, but why do you know that? And how you know that is how you know things. I mean, have you ever lifted up a carpet and seen like an empty pit or nothing? Like, I don't know why you would assume there to be. Yeah, where and if there was, right, in order to even have the concept of a trap that you could trap someone possibly by laying carpet over floor is because this presupposition that everyone agrees there's floor there exists, right? That's the only way you can trap them. Right. But can it be dirt? Yeah. Like, could you say that? Could you say there's dirt under the carpet and no floor, and it's just the carpet's on top of dirt? Just something to support it. I tried to make it something that supports the weight of you and the carpet. We always know carpet has weight, so we obviously know it's setting on something.
Yeah, well, that's on the Earth, when you have gravity. On the Earth, you have gravity, so you have a downward bias, so of course it has to be settling on something. But it's outside the Earth, so yeah. So what exactly is our point here? I'm not.
That's a transcendental form of argumentation. They were asking all of these arguments for the globe. They're all affirming the consequent. You know, they have to first assume it. Like, they can't just come up with that knowledge. Yeah, you can't just come up with globe knowledge for some reason. You know what I mean?
I understand, but like, what are you arguing about with the foundations and everything?
Yeah, the carpet proves that there's a presupposition, there's a precondition. Well, every globe argument has a presupposition that's a globe. We need one that does not have that presupposition. The first one, the one that proves it's a globe.
Can we give anyone that just proves that?
I mean, I don't see the problem of saying that if we're living on a spherical object, we would expect X, Y, and Z, right?
Can we provide one piece of evidence or proof that the Earth is flat? One.
I don't see how that's going to be.
It's not a matter of showing it to be flat as much as it is showing to not be what it's claimed to be, right? Because it's like if there's any sort of like evidence,
no curvature
that contradicts the fact that, you know, the radius isn't what it is, or the curve rate isn't what it says to be. Like, all your stuff has to go back to the drawing board.
Yep.
So it's not, the onus isn't up to us to prove flatness as much as it is to show what it isn't, right? And then it's up to you, right, to make the honest position and refortify your claims.
And Jake, to address what you said, what's the problem with saying if it's a sphere and we predict this and that? Well, continue the argument, right? This and that happens, therefore it's a sphere. Affirming the consequent. Dude.
That's no different than assuming that I have a father, or assuming if this guy is my father, then I would expect this, right? You would say that's all affirming the consequent too, right?
Nope.
How's the father different? Assuming that you have a father, how's that different than assuming that the Earth is a sphere?
I'm pretty much looking at you, dude. So I don't know.
Okay, so the father thing, for one, that's provable, testable. There's no human ever that's been made without a father.
Yeah, and as far as we're away, there's no large celestial object that's not a sphere, right?
Presupposing it's a sphere, right? To say that
that's what
there's no other
objects that we look at.
You're presupposing that it's a sphere. To say that's a sphere. Affirm the consequent.
No, you're just making a hypothesis. You say, look, everything we look up in the sky is spherical. Looks like it's spherical in nature.
We must be on a sphere.
So therefore, we hypothesize that we're living on a sphere, and if so, we would expect this, that, and the other, right? And then we don't look and see if we find it.
You look up in the sky, you see
even ChatGPT agrees with me with that. But for some reason, you want to claim that somehow you're like the arbiter of fucking logical fallacies or something.
Okay, that's how you.
No, I'm not.
In the first place. Okay.
Well, why is it you type this in the ChatGPT?
I want to address what Jake said. Jake, so you look up in the sky, you see what you think are spherical objects. Let's call them spherical objects. You assume that you're on something that resembles the sky, which is a spherical object. Presupposing you're on a sphere to prove you're a sphere. You do affirm the consequent.
You are hypothesizing, right? You made an observation. The observation is that the objects that we look at all in the heavens are spherical. The moon does look like a physical domain, right? It's got mountains and valleys and shadows and
there's the trees and water and people. The Earth also looks like it's stationary, and every time it shows it's stationary.
It's a perfectly reasonable argument and hypothesis to say, to hypothesize that we're living on a spherical object. And the only people that don't agree is you guys.
Can I get in?
Grok, ChatGPT, any engine, it will agree with me that it's a reasonable hypothesis, and it's not a affirming the consequent fallacy.
It also agrees with me that all evidence shows the Earth is stationary, and all evidence shows it's flat. I've talked with it, showed it that all evidence shows it's stationary. All evidence shows it's flat.
I'd love to see.
I had full conversations with it.
Hold on 1 second. Point of moderation real quick. First of all, ChatGPT is not a good measure of who's right or wrong. It has sycophancy, okay? It's just going to kowtow to whoever the fuck is asking the question, first of all. Second of all, this is about trying to make an argument that doesn't affirm the consequence first. That's we should understand what that means. Like, I could look at a tree and be like, wow, that kind of resembles a person. Therefore, I must be a tree.
Let me ask you this. Is there any argument you could make for chupacabra that wouldn't be affirming the consequent?
Okay, no, there isn't.
That's much of topics, but the one you were saying about things in the sky look a certain way, therefore the Earth must be a thing, that is like...
I didn't say therefore it must be a thing. I said it's cause for hypothesis.
No, it's not cause for hypothesis at all. It's illogical reasoning. Just check it out, dude.
Why is that
because we look around at where we live in our reality, and it looks nothing like what we see in the sky at all. Absolutely nothing like it.
Can I?
All right, Jake, let's let Alex get in, but Jake, my response to you is that actually I hear you. If you want to make a hypothesis, like that's fine. But if we're talking about like an argument based on truth, like getting to truth or asserting something as true, then that's not really the same as just sort of speculating like, oh, these things in the sky might be a thing, therefore this thing I'm on might be. That's not like if you want to do that and just kind of hypothesize, that's different. But we're talking about actually making an argument towards getting to truth. So if you're doing that, it's an affirming the consequence. If you're just kind of daydreaming and thinking about things, I guess you can do that. But
so therefore, according to that logic, there's no argument you could make for chupacabra that would be different.
No, it's not true.
I can show you a video of a chupacabra. What are you talking about?
Wait, what is your point on this? I think Alex wanted to get in, but I don't know what you mean by that.
I mean, just the logic isn't being applied consistently. I don't see how you guys don't see that.
So
You can make an argument for evidence that someone is your father, but you can't make argument for evidence that the Earth is spherical.
So I think both Jake and Gally, whoever is opposing Jake, I think you're both right. So Jake, are you basically saying that if we think, then we can collect data to see if like we can collect data and see if the data matches our hypothesis, and then our hypothesis is likely true?
Right. I'm just saying that you can make a hypothesis, and then you can make some logical argument to say if this hypothesis is true, we would expect X, Y, and Z, and then you go and test that. Right. Just the same way we learn about anything in our reality. In the same way, even if like we want to analyze the chupacabra, people claim they see this animal or the chupacabra. If that animal is true, then we should expect X, Y, and Z. Right. We should expect a breeding population. We should expect to find dead ones every now and then, or to find whatever. Right. Like there should be some
and
whatever. Right. And those aren't all affirming the consequent fallacies. Right.
No, Jake,
affirming the consequent fallacies.
Hold on real quick, Jake. This is simple though, but you would need to. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was basically going to say, so I think you guys are confusing that, saying that it's affirming the consequent. It's actually not. He's correct in what he's saying. He's misunderstanding you and misunderstanding your definition of affirming the consequent. He's thinking that you are saying definition, or what he's saying is evidence of the globe. You're thinking it's affirming the consequent. It's not actually. It's just hypothesizing something and then collecting data and seeing if that matches the hypothesis, and then coming to a conclusion, thinking it's like it's true.
Just check if you're right real quick, Alex. What's the difference between a presupposition and hypothesis?
Yeah, so that was always defined. I don't see why that's relevant. Could you just get to your point?
Because if you think they're the same thing, you would come to the conclusion that you just came to. So Jake is talking about a hypothesis. We're talking about affirming the consequent, which is using the very presupposition to prove the presupposition.
He's not presupposing anything. He's saying, basically, I see this data. Using this data, it can match with the sphere. So that means I think it's likely a sphere. Now there could be something to match with.
Okay, so where's the argument when he said that? Because I don't think he's presenting an argument that said that. He talked about the father, the DNA test, the inductive reasoning, saying that that's affirming the consequent. But I just want the argument for the sphere that doesn't presuppose it's a sphere. And I actually don't think, based on what you said, that you know the difference between a presupposition and hypothesis.
I do.
Even though it was defined.
Yes, I do. So
can you please state it just so we know that you know?
Yeah, so what he's saying there, he's not presupposing that the Earth is a sphere, okay? He's seeing data and saying, okay, if the Earth was a sphere, this would happen. Because this thing is happening, because the data matches what I would expect on the sphere, that means it's likely a sphere. That is not presupposing. That is creating a hypothesis and collecting data, and it matches.
That's affirming the consequent. If he says, because this... Can I finish that if he says part?
Yeah, sorry.
Before you say no, it's not?
Go ahead. You pause, so I was just... Go ahead.
Yeah, so if someone says, the Earth is a globe, if it was a globe, we expect these things. We see these things. Therefore, the Earth is a globe. That's affirming the consequent. So if you're saying that he made an argument that isn't that, where's the argument? Because that's what we've been asking for probably an hour now. There's been no argument about that. There's been talk about how do you know your father is your father? How do you know you're not living in a virtual reality? All this other nonsense. And also, I would like you to define those two terms because I don't think that you know the difference.
It's okay to not know, dude.
Yeah, so a presupposition is when you assume something beforehand, before confirming it. And so it would be like if I presuppose that the chair will hold my weight when I sit down. Now, a hypothesis, I don't know how to properly define it, but I'll give an example. So I can hypothesize that if I sit on the chair, it will hold my weight. That's not assuming anything. That's saying it might or it might not.
Hypothesis is the thing. Oh, I thought you might cut out. Yeah, the hypothesis is the thing that's to be tested. The presupposition is the thing that's axiomatically taken to be true before the thing is done. So they're totally different. So he is doing the presupposition. If he made the argument, if the Earth is a globe, we would expect such and such. We see such and such. Therefore, the Earth is a globe. He's presupposing it's a globe to then find proofs that prove it's a globe. But he actually hasn't made any argument about the Earth being a globe. So we actually don't have any meat to bite into. He's just rambled on with sophistry about, well, we can't know anything, and how do you know your dad's your dad? That has nothing to do with the question at hand, which is, what are proofs for the globe? What's an argument for the globe that is not affirming the consequent? So, I mean, that should be a really simple task. If you guys are saying that these things aren't affirming the consequent, then present the argument for the globe that is not affirming the consequent. If it really is so simple, and if people really aren't doing that, it should be a real simple ask.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to present an argument for the globe. I'm just saying that if there was an argument given in such a way that Jake is describing, that's not affirming the consequent.
That is totally for affirming the consequent.
I'd have to hear the argument, but if Jake is saying, if it's a globe, then this happens, therefore it's a globe, that's affirming the consequent. But he hasn't made the argument. You're defending an argument that's not even made. You're defending a hypothetical argument.
I'm not defending a globe.
How about we let Jake make his argument before you speak
Jake
for him?
has been trying to, and I don't think it's going well because, unfortunately, I don't think...
He's an adult, man. You're an adult. Let's let Jake speak for himself. Jake, do you want to present your argument?
Hi, it's Jake from State Farm.
Hey, this is Jake from State Farm. I'm still waiting for a globe argument that doesn't affirm the consequence. Thank you.
Should be one. There should be one.
Yeah,
There's evidence of a chupacabra in the lab chat, just FYI.
So, Gally, are you saying that the thing he's presupposing is that? So you say, if we assume that the Earth... So the way I'm seeing it is that he's saying, if the Earth was a globe, this would happen. Since this does happen, that means likely the Earth is a globe. Are you saying that he's presupposing that it would happen if the Earth was a globe?
You keep inserting this word likely to try to turn it into an inductive argument, but you're asking if hypothetically Jake made an argument that it's an inductive argument, which proves something to a degree of certainty, but he hasn't made an argument for me to say whether or not it's affirming the consequent. I'm waiting for the argument.
I'm defending what Jake was saying because you were saying, because Jake did present a hypothetical scenario or a hypothetical evidence, and he described how it would not be affirming that it would be, in fact, affirming the consequent, when I don't think it was presupposing that the Earth is a globe.
Yes, sir. The only argument that I've heard Jake make for the globe was pilots assume the Earth is a globe. So they presuppose the Earth is a globe, and then they make fuel calculations based on that presupposition. Therefore, the Earth is a globe. That's affirming the consequent.
Okay, could you say that again?
Yeah, so he said pilots assume the Earth is a globe. They make fuel adjustments which presuppose the Earth is a globe. And then when pressed on it and said that's affirming the consequent, he said, dude, how does that work on a flat Earth?
Wait, so basically what he's saying is that pilots do make adjustments, and so if the Earth was a globe, they would make adjustments. If the Earth was flat, they would not make adjustments. So that means it's a globe, correct?
I guess.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's pilots presuppose the Earth is a globe. They do a thing that they would do if the Earth is a globe. Therefore, it is a globe, affirming the consequent. Dude.
You agree with what I said, though, because the fact that they would make adjustments, if they do, I'm not saying they do, but if they make those adjustments, that means that because they wouldn't make those adjustments on a flat Earth, that means the Earth is a globe. So if the Earth was a globe, you would have to make, they do make adjustments, so that means the Earth is a globe. It's not.
It's irrelevant. The argument form is affirming the consequent. Because it doesn't matter if the differences between globe and flat are so negligible that the adjustments don't even change anything. Right? Because if we're getting into the after we accept the argument as not affirming the consequent, but it's irrelevant. The form of the argument is affirming the consequent. That's what affirming the consequent is talking about. It's talking about the form of an argument.
The thing is, it doesn't matter if the pilots presuppose it's a globe or not. The very fact that they are adjusting the plane without it crashing to the ground shows that it would be a globe. So it would be globe predictions.
Yeah. So Jake said, pilots presuppose.
No. Just to be clear, and today I wasn't even talking about. Today I was just talking about evidence in the form of pictures and video and testimony. But yesterday I was talking about flight planning, right, and distances between all locations on the Earth. And we know, obviously, that if in reality all these locations that we fly to are points that are dotted around a spherical object, we know that the distance relationships between all those objects could only work on that shape. There's no other shape that they can work on.
Right. So see, it's presupposing the globe, right? Because like distances on flights. Let me finish speaking. I let you finish speaking. Stop doing that. So why would you not assume that there's a million different things that could affect the pilot's like path, like wind? Do you think that they have accurate trajectory speeds? Do you think that pilots know accurately how fast they're going?
See, it's not assuming that the Earth is a globe. It's assuming that what the predictions would be exclusive to the globe. So that's not presupposing that the Earth is a globe. That's presupposing the predictions are exclusive to the globe. So it is presupposing, but it's not presupposing the globe itself.
What is it presupposing if it's not presupposing the globe?
It's presupposing that the predictions he names are exclusive to the globe.
Which presupposes it's what?
What?
No, it's not presupposing only that it's a globe. It's saying if the Earth was a globe, this would happen. But you're presupposing that would happen if the Earth was a globe. You're not presupposing the Earth is a globe.
Okay, you said it's presupposing that
then these things would happen.
Yeah, you said it's presupposing that the predictions made would make sense if the Earth is a globe, right? And then the thing happens, and the predictions made make sense. Therefore, it's a globe. Affirming the consequent. This is not hard.
And you guys, Alex, you gotta look up affirming the consequence or like some type of.
I literally.
Okay, so you should understand that that's not logically sound.
Yeah, so no, I'll explain. I'll use an example.
You've been explaining for the past like 10 minutes, dude, but you haven't got it yet. How many more examples do we need to do? That's classic textbook affirming the consequence, bro.
Yeah, so you aren't just considering that maybe you guys are getting...
You guys are what? Sorry, you broke up.
Are getting the definition wrong, maybe? So can you just...
Okay, can we define it now? So I think we should define it like Gally asked you earlier, if you could define it.
I know he asked me to define hypothesize and presuppose, which I did. So you're
familiar with the
okay. It's a conditional statement, right? It's stating that because the consequent is true, the antecedent must be true. That's affirming the consequent. It's the converse error or confusion of the necessity of sufficiency. It's a formal fallacy and it's an invalid argument. So again, it's an indicative conditional statement that because the consequent is true, therefore the antecedent is true. So if you say, oh, I think it's a globe and this thing should work, this thing worked, therefore it's a globe, that's affirming the consequent.
Yeah, so can I continue my argument?
Yeah, as long as you understand what it is, you keep confusing it.
I understand, bro. I do understand. Okay, so I can say if there's a bed, then that means there's a blanket on it. Okay, I'm not presupposing there's a bed. I'm presupposing that if there's a bed, there's a blanket on it. I'm presupposing that there would be. So he's not presupposing that you're hypothesizing that there might be a globe, but he's presupposing that if there was a globe, there would be those predictions would happen. Do you understand?
If there's a bed, there's a blanket on blanket being on the bed only happens if there is a bed in the first place.
Dude,
it's such a headache, man.
Stop going after these semantics. If there's a,
I'm not going after. You made an analogy. I'm not going after semantics. I'm following your analogy.
Yeah. So like, how is that? How do you not understand? Can you explain what you don't understand?
If you talk, you will say dumb shit.
You say dumb shit when you talk. I'm sorry, I just want to make that argument. I'm sorry. That's my bad. I was just kidding.
Can someone explain what you don't like?
Does it mean you're gonna say dumb shit? Does it mean you're gonna talk?
Who?
All right, let's
Or am I
just
just
get through
assuming a
this.
bunch of shit?
Let's not do personal stuff. Let's just get.
I was just kidding. It's okay. It's okay, Pierre. I was just kidding. But Alex, you do realize like this is not really helping with the question at hand, which is, can the Globe side, right, the Globe defenders, make an argument that isn't affirming the consequence? You keep repeating multiple examples with the same thing that Jake has said, but technically speaking, Jake hasn't actually made a formal argument yet because he keeps weaseling out of it and saying, "I'm just trying to make hypotheses."
Yeah. So
can we actually hear an argument?
Sure, I'll give a formal argument.
There you go. All right.
So
I get that LOM out.
So basically, it's not helping if we say that Jake is presupposing that the Earth is a globe when he's not actually presupposing that the Earth is a globe. He's just presupposing what predictions there would be if the Earth.
Bro, can we let him make a formal argument?
Yeah, and a formal dude. The error lies in the assuming the conditional statement is the only cause for the consequent when other reasons may exist. That's what we're pointing out.
So I forgot, Jake did make an argument with the photos from space. And I'm going to prove that's affirming the consequent. If the Earth is a globe, then we will see round Earth photos from space. We see round Earth photos from space, therefore the Earth is a globe. The problem here is that the inference assumes that Q can only come from P, but Q can come from any type of fabrication, misinterpretation. Not saying that it is fabricated, but this is the logical form of affirming the consequent.
Yeah,
So then you just apply that to the blood test to
Yeah, you can make a affirming the consequent fallacy with a blood test with your dad, but the photos from space argument you made is textbook affirming the consequent.
It's not. And ChatGPT doesn't agree with you either.
Okay, I just asked ChatGPT for a textbook example of affirming the consequent when it comes to proving the Earth is a globe, and that's what it gave me, and that's also the argument that you made.
Yeah, so Beast, why were you asking me to stop? And I was just interrupted, and we are changing the topic. I was trying to explain something specific.
Because you're doing this weird white lighting for something that wasn't even said, and it's super annoying.
You just
Alex, I'll tell you why, bro. Because we're trying to come to a conclusion to this to this topic, so we can move on. So I want Jake to make a formal argument that doesn't affirm the consequence, and then we can move on.
And so you just encourage interrupting instead of.
No, dude, I think he was kind of hosting and shifting it. Why don't we give you the time though, right now, just to say your last piece? Because the thing that you guys were on was kind of a side thing, although it was linked to logic in general. Go ahead if you want to just give your final. But we are shifting back because we're trying to get an argument for the globe that isn't affirming the consequence. So, but do you want to say your thing? Go ahead.
All right, sure. So basically, I was saying if we say that Jake is affirming the consequent by presupposing that the Earth is a globe, wasn't he presupposing what predictions would be on the globe if the Earth was a globe? If we say he's presupposing that the Earth is a globe when he's not, he will get triggered, sadly, because that's not true, and then it will lead to a red herring conversation, of nothing that's relevant. And there will be confusion and everything. Instead of just saying, no, those predictions, how do you know those predictions would happen? If we clarify that, there will be no confusion. So I'm actually trying to help you guys.
It doesn't help, because you don't know what affirming the consequent is.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry to say I don't think you do. So.
Alright, well, if you think that's what Jake says it is, Jake used a textbook example of affirming the consequent when he talked about photos from space. And I don't know why you don't agree with that. It's a super weird, like, pre-white knighting thing.
No, I agree with the definition. I think you guys do not understand where to apply the definition.
Was that argument from Jake then about photos of space and affirming the consequent?
Can you do me a favor in that chat dialogue? You still have it open? The one that you just posted?
Yeah.
Can you add another line in there and say, however, if we list that the photos from space are taken from different sources around the world, different independent sources from around the world at different times in different positions, and they all show a spherical Earth, would that still be an affirming the consequent fallacy? Ask it that.
Please suppose that's a spherical Earth. Oh my God.
I just want to see what it says. Can you please ask that?
You goofball.
Can you please ask that for me and show us what it says?
Jake, come on, bro.
Can you please do that?
Okay, the reason I hang on.
Hang
The reason I brought up ChatGPT is because you invoked it as a source saying ChatGPT.
I want you to follow the logic to its conclusion.
Stop. The reason I brought it up is because you said.
Why are you scared to enter that? Why are you scared to enter that?
Dude, relax.
The reason I brought it up is because you said ChatGPT says it's not. Well, I got ChatGPT. Stop.
Jake,
It depends on the context.
It's your turn. Jake, wait 40.
I've literally been waiting. I've been sitting here trying to talk for 40 fucking minutes. It's just a waste of time at this point.
You've been talking for quite a while. First of all, second of all, you just can't scream and shout because we can't hear anyone. You're interrupting. So
Do you have the box timer that has
Okay, he left on his own. Fair enough. He's just screaming over you. So Galtrax, I guess go ahead. But now he left because he couldn't handle
That's all right.
I was just trying to finish like one quick point. He said that ChatGPT said a thing. I asked ChatGPT to not make a biased argument, and I asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT said a different thing. So if we're going by ChatGPT, which I don't encourage to do, well, ChatGPT will